right, thank you for staying with us. The study tour undertaking by the Nigeria Presidential CNG initiative is expected to strengthen collaboration and attract investment from India automotive industry. Now, the program director and chief executive of PCNGI, Michael Oluwagbemi, confirmed that the energy transition program and representatives of key states' transport ministries was meant to give them an opportunity to learn. Senior reporter Habida Lawal has details.
India is also on a path to clean fuel transition since 1998, when the country's Supreme Court ordered clean fuels transition to the back of massive pollution, requiring CNG adoption by 2001 across our transition systems. During this period, despite small gas reserves and high dependence on foreign gas imports, India became a CNG vehicle leader, accounting for over 5 million vehicles running on natural gas. The current collaboration with Nigeria aims to share the Indian CNG and EV experience to ensure Nigeria can benefit from the lessons learned. Chief Executive of the Presidential CNG Initiative, Michael Oluwagbemi, says this provided an opportunity to connect with critical manufacturers and investors, as well as international development funding.
Here in India, we've seen the development of the local kit manufacturing industry that allowed them to transition well over 5 million vehicles very quickly to CNG. All their commercial vehicles running on CNG. And now we are looking at doing the same in Nigeria. The President Bola Tinubu's administration have already charged us to ensure that 1 million vehicles are running on CNG by year 2027. The way we do that is by converting the more than 12.5 million vehicles in Nigeria, by beginning to move our commercial vehicles, our mass transit vehicles, into CNG, by converting them from PMS to CNG.
So that is the confidence that customers can have from our product, that we do everything in-house. We have stringent norms to do everything, and we can give a good working product, then customers can go for years without any defect.
The Nigerian team was also exposed to the country's transition challenges and potential opportunities for job creation and innovation.
Transportation infrastructure facilitates the movement of goods and people, which in turn boosts trade, investment, and overall economic activity. Now, with Nigeria possessing abundant natural gas resources, it is only logical for the country to follow suit and adopt CNG for its own transportation needs. Not only is it cheaper alternative to traditional petrol, but it also promises a cleaner, more sustainable future for the country. Habida Lawal, TVC News, New Delhi.
All right, joining us in the studio is the CEO and Program Director of the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, Michael Oluwagbemi. Good morning. It's good to have you join us in the studio this morning. You know, the question on the lips of a majority of Nigerians since the president made that statement that subsidy is gone, and he was, bringing alternatives with regards to this matter of energy and also looking at how to cut costs for Nigerians. He talked about compressed natural gas, and a majority of Nigerians had been waiting with bated breath, saying, oh, okay, we are about to begin. But up until now, it seems a lot is not happening with regards to that. So talk to us from your point of view, and we see that you went on a tour recently, study tour. Talk to us how prepared we are and what Nigerians should be expecting.
Good morning again, and thanks for having me.
Right.
Definitely a journey of 1,000 steps, started with the first.
Yeah.
And for Nigeria, that first step was on May 29 last year, when Mr. President made his first sweeping policy statement around the removal of fuel subsidy. Right. The existence of fuel subsidy meant that CNG was not competitive because the dirty and unreliable PMS was subsidized. And alternative sources like CNG that were more competitively priced did not appear to be more economical. But the removal of PMS by Mr. President indicated that the president was serious about moving Nigeria from the unreliable, dirtier PMS and diesel to the safer, cheaper, more reliable natural gas, which Nigeria has in abundance. That by itself was the foundation of the current policy of energy transition in the transport sector. Since the president empaneled the President CNG initiative, led by our chairman, Dr. Zach Adeliji, and 6 other wise men and women, the steering committee, and the empowerment of our management team led by myself in October, we've done some critical work to ensure that this can take off. First and foremost was we needed to work with regulatory agencies because you do not have a sector if you do not develop standards. Investors do not have the confidence to invest if they are not sure that their investments are safe and that the entry and exit from the sector can be guaranteed. So what we did was we worked with the Standard Organization of Nigeria that released about 80 standards that were signed off in March. But those standards had been on the book for more than 4 or 5 years. And without standards, an engineering-driven sector, a technology-driven sector like CNG cannot take off. So we did that. And that shows a level of preparedness. As we speak now, the more than 22 regulatory agencies that have one thing or the other to do with the sector are developing their operational guidelines. In Abuja today, this morning, the Nigerian Automotive Design and Development Council is having its own operational guideline review and stakeholder engagement with actors in the automobile sector and with respect to the accreditation of conversion workshops. Because we need to have at least 1 million vehicles converted by year 2027. And so this work is already ongoing, and that shows seriousness. In December, we met with our investors because government alone, government is not the one that builds your filling stations for petrol or the tank farms and the depot. These are something that private sector do. But private sector needed to get the confidence from the government that government is serious about this policy. So we had the session, the Investors Forum in December, and since then we've been able to mobilize well over $50 million into the sector, just in the space of 4 months. This is probably equal to the entire sum that had gone into CNG sector in the last 10 years. And that have gone into refueling stations. NIPCO is opening about 8 of them between now and May 29. Buvas is opening at least 5 of them between Ibadan and Kwara State and Ekiti State between now and May 29. NNPC Retail is opening several across the country. More than 10 private sector operators are opening about 10 of them between now and June 15. So all of these are investments that are going directly into the sector to ensure that Nigerians can get the CNG they need when they need it. So these are one of many indicators that we are serious about this. The government is focused on this. The government has given incentives. We've given tax waivers since December to the sector. We've provided a very, very firm view when it comes to the purchase by the government agencies. That gives some assurance, some demand signaling. We've also provided CNG gas for mobility at reduced prices as given by the concessionary gas price that was published by NMPDRA for the sector about 3 weeks ago, offering almost 40% discounts to regular price gas going to other sectors. So I think these and many other things shows that we are getting ready. We're not going to be there overnight. It took more than 40 years to get addicted to PMS, and it will take us a few years to get rid of that addiction.
So that's where I'm coming from, mindset and trust of the people. Because since the removal of the fuel subsidy, we've seen people use gas to power their generators. But the mindset of using gas to power a vehicle, CNG to power a vehicle, has not really caught up. A lot of people believe that the CNG is like the regular gas, that once the car is hot, it can blow up. Please address that.
Yes, it's not. I mean, what you use for generators and what you use for cooking is LPG.
Yes.
And that's just, it's not CNG. CNG occurs naturally, natural gas, you just compress it. It occurs as a byproduct of, gas prospecting as opposed to crude oil refining or stripping natural gas to get LPG, which is what LPG is of. Of course, it's much safer. And also, the reality is that CNG's application for transport sector has a lot of incredible advantages for your vehicle. It lasts longer. You don't have to go for oil change as much as you need to. And of course, you are using a resource that disconnects Nigeria Nigerians from the economic vagaries that we associate with crude oil. Whenever there's warfare going on in Ukraine, Russia, there's something going on in Palestine, in Israel, the price of crude oil goes up. Nigerians have no business with what's going on in Palestine and no business with what's going on in Ukraine. Absolutely. But we pay for it at the pump. And if we don't even pay for it at the pump, the government absorbs the cost and it reduces what we can spend on healthcare and education.
But we import the equipment used, the cylinders used for...
Absolutely. We have a plan already.
What's that plan, please?
Well, the plan for us is that we need to do domestic manufacturing. As you saw in your takeout that you just saw during our study tour in India, it demonstrated to us that for India to be able to go from a country that was heavily dependent on PMS and diesel to one that is now dependent on CNG, as it were, for them to do that transition, they needed to build a local manufacturing industry to underpin what they're doing. For us in Nigeria, we are already on the path to doing that. We're working on a CNG industrial park, and this will be announced very soon. I will not let the cat out of the bag, but we're working with critical stakeholders across the country. Manufacturing is already going on in its own way. We have assembly going on.
Yes,
we're going to be having some
there are some local assemblies
yes.
across the country. So I think there's one in Lagos because some Nigerians have been talking about if we are going to be looking at the manufacturer in Nigeria
Absolutely.
as it is. And also when we're talking about buying vehicles that are CNG powered, are we going to look inward as well? Because we know of some companies who assemble them in Nigeria. If that is what, looking at the statement the president made, that the MDAs now should buy or purchase these vehicles that are CNG powered as it is, and there's been reaction with regards to that. We'll get your reaction, but are we looking in that direction to buy from these local manufacturers?
We have to. In fact, the purchases that were done by the Ministry of Finance under the 100 billion naira palliative funds that was made available to them to acquire for this program, the manufacturers for the CNG were all local. CNG buses and tricycles were all local. Tomorrow we'll be doing an inspection tour of 2 of them here in Lagos and in Ibadan. And then we're going to do one next week in Enugu as well, where we're going to be actually receiving the buses that they've already assembled. So for us, it's not something that we are saying phase 2 or phase 3. No, right from the immediate phase, we are taking from Nigerian manufacturers. We are not depending 100% on just importing old vehicles. Of course, we start first with the SKDs, and eventually we'll be able to do the supply chain sourcing locally, but at least we are starting with local assembly.
Okay, so if one has to convert his vehicle from petrol powered to CNG powered, what will be the attendant cost for many? Yeah,
for many Nigerians today, that cost will depend on the type of vehicle. It can range all the way from 350,000 naira to 700,000 naira, depending on the cylinder, the make, the type.
Okay, that's now because I know that earlier it used to be far cheaper than that.
Yes, they are, well, because we are dependent on the cylinders and the kits that are, of course, priced in dollars because we don't manufacture them yet in country. And that's why we're working on the industrial park to bring some of that manufacturing into Nigeria so that we don't again have to be dependent on importing and then effects and port issues and all of those stuff. We are determined to move 1 million vehicles to CNG, natural gas from the conventional PMS. It doesn't mean they will not still use PMS. They will be using both PMS and natural gas, but PMS now becomes the backup. The main fuel for the vehicle will be CNG. But in doing so, 1 million vehicles mean I need 1 million cylinders, 1 million kits. That's enough to attract significant manufacturing to Nigeria from the major players. One of the players that we just visited, Mijo, in India, is the biggest manufacturer in India in the retrofit industry. And they've already signaled their willingness to come to Nigeria to manufacture, not just assemble. And this is the case with all of our manufacturing partners in China, in Argentina, as well as Italy.
So this will drive the price down when it eventually comes to Nigeria.
It will be subjected to local costs, and those issues around effects will not be there anymore.
Well, Nigerians are waiting seriously to see that happen because of the cost of PMS as it is right now, and also the scarcity of the product as well. When you look at the papers this morning, Nation, for instance, is talking about CNG sale points to be made compulsory at petrol stations. Talk to us about this, because that's also another issue that Nigerians are talking about. These points, how readily available are if they want to access them?
Yes, so these are critical policy steps that we're taking. The federal government taking the first policy step to say, look, as a matter of government policy, because you have to understand that us using CNG for Nigeria is not just a matter of, we are able to cut down the cost of petrol and the cost it's also reducing the cost of governance. If the federal government vehicles are now fueled at 40–50% cheaper than what they will normally be fueled at, and they are doing the same kilometer, their operational effectiveness have not changed, then the cost of governance have reduced, and you can use that money to do other things, right? So the policy by the federal government through the NMPDR is to say, look, every petrol station that already exists in Nigeria has petrol, kerosene, and diesel. Now you must have CNG dispensing, and you must have that capacity if you want to go into that business. And I think that's just the right thing to do. We're going to have other policy rollouts, and these policy rollouts are going to be sequenced to ensure that, of course, we reduce the transition cost and, of course, the pains that we associate with transitioning. But what we care about ultimately is that we need to utilize Nigeria's gas for Nigeria's development. There's gas in 30 of Nigeria's 36 states. To process gas is much, much cheaper than to process crude oil. it delinks our economy from the cost of crude oil, which continues to rise as crude oil gets more scarce in the world. We should take our crude oil, we should refine it and export it to the rest of the world, and we should use our natural gas.
But don't you think private sector players will take advantage of the fact that Nigerians are transitioning or have moved 30 points to CNG to increase the price of these things? Because
talking about regulation.
Yes, regulation.
Yes, so the price of gas is regulated. Is unlike the price of PMS, which is either subsidized or not regulated, or diesel, right? In the case of gas, because of the kind of product it is, if you look at the PIA, gas in Nigeria is vested fully and solely in the federal government of Nigeria, acting through its agents, NNPCL. It's not the case of crude oil, right? It's not the case of other things. In the case of gas, we can regulate the price of gas. And that regulation is with the eye also at the private sector players making their money. This is true in Nigeria and this is true in other parts of the world. There's no part of the world where prices of gas is not regulated because it's an important commodity. From gas, you don't just drive your transport sector or your industrial sector. You even drive your agriculture sector. It's from gas that you make fertilizers and you make ammonia.
So how much is it now?
So today now, per MMBTU of gas, depends on which sector you're looking at. So in the case of industrial sector and power sector, I think it's about $2.47 or thereabout. In the case of CNG, it's about $1.48. That's the reduced $1.57, the reduced price that was given by NMPD, right? Here in Nigeria. There's nothing called the gas. Unlike crude oil, there's nothing called international pricing gas because it has to be local. Because you cannot store gas forever. So that's the beauty of gas. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us.
Dark marks, I've tried everything. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking into the matter of compressed natural gas and the statement the president made recently with regards to ordering ministries, departments, and agencies to buy CNG-powered vehicles, generators, and the likes for their operations. And we still have in the studio speaking with us the CEO and Program Director, Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, Michael Uluwagbemi, talking to us about this. And you were telling us before we went on the break how it is that we have a huge storage of gas in the country as it is, but we have not been able to harness it in such a way that it can benefit Nigerians. And even when you look at the electricity sector, at some point we often say that, oh, there's not enough gas and gas shortage. That's why we are having issues with regards to our electricity. We've not been able to really harness that. Now, the challenges we've seen with the electricity sector, there is a concern if that is not what we'll be seeing with regards to the CNG now that we're trying to move into clean energy as it is. Right?
Yeah, so again, it's about looking at the situation and understanding the differences, right? In the case of electricity, our main challenges have been liquidity. It's not that there was this absence of, electricity does not depend just on gas. It depends on hydro, it depends on solar, it depends on many other sources. And the real problem of that sector is that of liquidity. In the case of the transport sector, there's no liquidity problem. Once you go to the pump, you pay for your gas and you leave. So if anything, this allows us to improve the liquidity for the gas industry because now the transport sector will be one in the mix. Before, transport sector is not in the mix, it's staying out of it. This is 15 to 17% of the economy. And power was the main demand for gas. So the entire investment decision by the upstream player in gas was dependent on what the power sector was doing. But we know power sector has what we call a liquidity gap. And that liquidity gap is big because there's a time lag between when you get your power and when someone pays for gas, because there's the lack of metering and all the other interesting things that power is struggling with. In the case of transport, no problem. Once you cannot get gas into your vehicle if you don't pay for it. The same way you cannot get gas, petrol into your vehicle if you don't pay for it today. That's the same thing for gas. So gas has immediate liquidity. It improves the liquidity of the gas ecosystem. That CNG has liquidity in transportation and improves the liquidity of the entire gas ecosystem and increases the investment in gas. The lack of investment in gas over the years is because the investors want to make sure that once you invest, that molecule itself is not just paid for, but it can be utilized.
Absolutely.
Because what the difference between gas and liquid petroleum is that liquid petroleum can be stored easily. You can put it on a tanker, you can put it in a pit. You can do that with gas. The moment you drill it, the moment you produce it, someone has to use it. Now, what we're doing is that we demand signaling for the transport sector to tell them that there's no problem. Government vehicles alone constitute about 250,000 for state federal government and about almost 750,000 for state and local government across the country. That's 1 million vehicles. If the policy of just government vehicles is followed through, you can imagine the level of gas demand in Nigeria today. So the folks that are investing in gas can have the assurance, they can do the compression, they can do the processing, the distribution, the virtual pipeline. Investment will flow into the sector because of it.
Right.
Okay, so you're saying gas, CNG is safe for everyone to use in their vehicle?
It is. It is. CNG is intrinsically safe. I say this based on the science. Folks see explosions today and say, oh, there can be explosions. But guess what? The number of diesel and PMS vehicle explosions every day is unimaginable. If we just use that as a standard, we will not, any of us will not be getting it.
Well, how is it safe for the health of the vehicle itself?
Much more better, because you're using a cleaner fuel, more than 40% less tailpipe emission. You go less to the mechanic workshop doing your oil change than if you're using a PMS, and especially diesel, which is the dirty fuel. I mean, this is the reality. This is the science. And of course, it's even safe in terms of the way it is stored. It's stored in a bulletproof container that is completely extruded, which means that there's no weld, it cannot leak. Even if it leaks, it's much lighter than air, it dissipates. It does not stay, unlike petrol that settles and then leads to the explosion that we see in a PMS and petrol tanker accidents all the time.
Right, interesting. We see from what you have said that our target is about 1 million in 2027.
Yeah.
Because according to some reports, what we have as of now is about 5,000
Yeah, between 5,000 and 7,000.
1 million. What's the strategy in 2027?
The strategy is very clear. So our approach is this. Mr. President told us from day one, look guys, we are not trying to replace the private sector. The federal government's work is not to be the private sector. Our work is to incentivize the private sector. And that's why you are saying all the things the first work we have is to incentivize adoption.
Okay.
We've done the tax waiver, we've provided gas at less cost, we are now telling MDs that they have to buy the gas. Those are key incentives that the private sector will step into to do the necessary. And we are also now doing the facilitating funding. We are going to do some critical projects in the sector that we're going to leverage on existing government funds. The MDGI, for example, we're looking at leveraging it for the industrial park. And we're going to be looking at the Nigerian Content Fund, the NCDMB fund. That's already available for the oil and gas industry. But we used to enable players in the sector to be able to do what they need to do. The automotive fund is going to be used and utilized by the auto players to be able to do all the conversion. So all of these things are going to be lined up in terms of the funding side. And then a very predictable regulatory framework. And that is very critical for investment.
Right.
In all of this, the federal government will also roll out what we call the Conversion Incentive Program. I will be announcing this on May 29 at the press conference. That conversion incentive program will allow folks, especially in the mass transit sector, to be able to walk in, drive into any one of our conversion workshops. That's why they've been verified and been uniquely identified. And they will be able to get their conversions done, and then they will be able to pay thereafter small, without having to pay money up front. That is critical to moving those 1 million vehicles from where they are right now, consuming PMS and guzzling diesel, and literally we are burning our national enterprise, to doing the right thing, utilizing our natural gas for the purpose of moving Nigeria safely and cheaper.
Okay, so looking at this, I'm trying to understand what the cost of filling CNG tank will be as against the cost of full tank in your vehicle.
Yeah, so let me give you an example. A typical 75 liters cylinder, that's a CNG cylinder at the back of a vehicle, will need to be refilled twice. Twice a week.
A week, okay.
But your vehicle will need a week, one-time refill.
Okay.
That's probably if I look at the disadvantage of CNG, that's probably the only disadvantage. You have to go to the petrol station twice, right? That's the only disadvantage.
Twice a week?
Yes, so that cylinder will be refilled twice. If you need to refill the first time, it's about 10 to 12 kg, you're going to spend close to 10 multiplied by 3,000 $300 naira, which is about the highest.
300 naira per kg?
Per kg, yeah. That's about the highest you pay. That's 3,000. That means you will spend 6,000 a week. How much are you spending on filling your full tank today?
Well,
I will not say more than that.
At this time, I
will say more than
well,
that.
it sounds so good.
Yes.
It sounds so good, but for most Nigerians, accessibility is the key issue for them.
Yeah,
so
that's the work. That's our work.
Is the key issue for them, because the question on the lips of some Nigerians is, why are we beginning from the federal government talking about ministries, departments, and agencies? Why are we not beginning with common Nigerians out there who are feeling the pinch and all of that?
I will take a little objection to the use of common. 10%. So let me give you the data. 90% of Nigerians move on mass transit.
Right.
90% of Nigerians, and mass transit constitutes less than 50% of the vehicles on the road. Mass transit used loosely, including all the taxis and everything. So really, at the end of the day, 90% of Nigerians are in the mass transit sector, and that's what we are focused on.
Yeah, but they are paying heavily for it.
Yeah. So we need to make sure that we move that sector very quickly, because that's where most people use, the 90% of Nigerians. There's 10% like you that own a private vehicle.
No, it's not about
But let's
begin with them, because they are paying heavily for it.
Yes, we will work with them. However, to say to the 10%, they're important too, right? I mean,
absolutely,
that's the middle class.
Yeah.
We are working with financial institutions so that they come up with schemes. Because again, this thing finances itself. If you know the numbers I just gave you.
Yeah.
In a week, you'll be saving 30,000, 40,000 naira. If you have a small car, you have a big car, you're saving 60,000, 70,000 naira. So if you do a conversion for even the highest price of 700,000 naira, if you have the big car, if you are saving 70,000, in 10 months, you finish paying the cost of conversion. So for a bank, they can finance it. The same thing for a small vehicle. If you're saving 50,000, 60,000 naira a month, even a week, in less than 10 weeks or 12 weeks, you're done. So in 7 weeks, the other one in 10 weeks, you can finance this. Who will not finance you if you're going to break even in your business in 3 months? That's essentially what it is. So we are working with financial institutions. They will come up, and you're already seeing it. Bovas is already doing it in Ibadan, where you literally drive to the pump station. There's a conversion center in Ajibode near UI Gate. Okay. And yes, we commissioned it about 4 weeks ago. And when you go there, they will change it for you, and then you pay small at the pump. Every time you go fill up your gas, instead of you paying maybe the 250 naira or the 300 naira, they top it up with 50 naira, and then you pay over time. So slowly, in 1 year, you own your car, you own your conversion kit, and you save money. So these are things that will be happening for the private sector. This is incredible. And we're not even talking about the jobs that will be created. The innovation that the private sector is doing with respect to this. More than 25,000 technicians we need to do this job.
Yeah, because I was going to talk about skills acquisition for those who, especially for those who will be doing the conversion.
And the implication for the Nigerian automobile industry. Because now you are going to go into the engine of the vehicle, you're going to look at it, you're going to do the ECU, you're going to do the programming. In no time, there will be a ricochet effect of this in the entire automobile and engineering sector. Because now Nigerian engineers are going to get hands-on, they're going to be working on these cars. People will be building new vehicles and creating new companies. This morning, I've gotten inquiries from owners of 2 or 3 automobile companies in Nigeria, and I'll be meeting with them and engaging them. The automobile sector of Nigeria is about to take off. When you combine what we're doing with CNG with what the president is doing with the credit guarantee program, the credit core, if you combine these two things, the future is really is jarringly bright.
Really sounding convincing. Yeah, maybe what you should do is to come and convert our cars. Don't
worry, the media is my constituency.
Yes,
I know.
So you come and convert vertical vehicles and
not just us. No, let's not be selfish.
Okay,
everyone, 10%. Since we get so wealthy.
So the concern again is because the conversion kits at the moment, how do we have that on the ground? How readily available they are? Because I recall that the conversation around this whole matter at that time was the conversion kits, how readily available they are, how the costs, and all of that. Is there going to be a subsidized rate for all of this?
Yeah. So the conversion kits availability, we started working with the Federal Ministry of Finance to finance bringing some into the country, and of course the private sector will then offtake that, at least as first instance, because it's an incredible logistics to move them since we're importing them. But at the same time, we are working on a plan to manufacture them, which was the underpinning of the trip that we took to India to get engaged. But in the meantime, we're bringing in a substantial number into the country in the next 2 weeks. In fact, they will start arriving this Friday. And they will,
how many?
We're going to bring at least 22,000 into the country. In the
spread across states?
Yeah, it's going to be available. Private sector, again, we are not in the business of, we are not the one that will install it. It's private sector. Okay. So they will be like, oh, I need 20, I need 40, and they will be moved. You know, the value chain is being set up for that, to be able to manage that. That is that. But in terms of cost, like I said, our main concern in terms of cost today is the mass transit sector. And we're already working on a program, the conversion incentive program, that will be announced on May 29, that we have incentives for different critical sectors. The mass transit sector through the unions, the state-owned mass transit sector. We also have an opportunity to be able to access these kits. The ride share, the Bolt, Ubers, to be able to access some of these kits. And of course, my constituency should be able
the media.
No, they have to. They have to.
Yes. Okay, so is this going all around other states in Nigeria, apart from maybe Lagos, Abuja, Ibadan, and other states?
Yeah. So CNG today, I call it CNG range states, about 23 states. In terms of where CNG can get to, because CNG cannot move beyond 250 kilometers, even if it stretches 300 kilometers where it is compressed, for it to make economic sense. So the range state gets to about Kaduna and Mina today. But NNPC, like today now, NNPC is commissioning some critical projects that is feeding into the AKK, and the AKK is being completed. As AKK is completed, the range state increases to almost all the states of the Federation. So our primary focus area range for CNG today is these immediate range states, the 23 states that have and can get CNG, right? But we are also complementing that with the EV plan, right? So the EV plan is to complement in the states that do not necessarily have immediate availability of CNG. And so we are going to work on it. But in the next 9 to 12 months, as we begin to flow gas, do some critical projects like floating mini LNG plants and CLNG plants, that range will begin to expand, and it will cover more states across the Federation, and it will be made available. And it's not just vehicles. People talk about bus and vehicles and all that. Tricycles. Yeah. We are bringing critical tricycles that will be at the bottom of the pyramid. It will be in Nasarawa State, it will be in Niger State, it will be in Kaduna. It will have CNG tricycles in the next 1 month.
You see some in Lagos as well.
Oh yeah. Lagos is responsible for 40% of Nigeria's traffic intensity. So you definitely need one.
Interesting. Wow. So you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so if CNG is as cheap as we are talking about it now, it means that traffic might come back to Lagos.
Well, the train is there to rescue. Good thing.
Are you scared of traffic? Anyway, it's one of the characteristics of Lagos and what makes Lagos beautiful. Lagos. We've been able to manage the traffic too over time. Yeah. Now, let's look at perhaps the individual responsibility of persons, because you've said there are those at the bottom rung of the ladder in terms of those who will be using tricycles, those who will be using bicycles and all of that. But they may not understand that even though we are saying that this is safe, there is also the need to play safe with all of this issues and things. Talk to us from that perspective, how people should take responsibility at ensuring their own safety in the process of knowing that, yes, this is safe, but you also need to be safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we say in engineering is that every vehicle, any vehicle is a weapon. I mean, you have to understand it. It doesn't matter whether it is, you can even make the EV vehicle as safe as it is. It's a weapon. There's a reason why lithium ion cannot fly on planes. They will tell you remove your battery you cannot check it into the plane. And EVs have lithium ion. So and we've seen cases of even EV vehicles burning in the US, vis-a-vis. But this is supposed to be a safe form of transportation. Yeah. Every vehicle is a weapon. You treat it as such. Be careful. Follow the specifications. Don't play games. You cannot use LPG cylinder for CNG because it's just madness. And we are regulating the sector. We're stepping in with the Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System, which we're going to be working on a co-creation session with the 4 critical agencies next week in Abuja to launch this. The idea is that right from the point of a CNG vehicle being utilized, whether it is OEM, in the case of where it is originally manufactured, from the point of it being manufactured, it is certified. When it is coming into Nigeria, it is inspected and it is checked, and there's a regular check, and who did it, where they did it, everything has to be certified. In the case of conversion, the conversion workshop has to be certified, accredited, the technician working on it has to be certified, everything has to be monitored end to end. And you can be stopped by FRSC, who is working with us, because they will have unique plate numbers for all yes, natural gas vehicles. In
Really?
Yes. We're going to put them on a unique plate numbering system. So there's no, we need to have an idea. Because again, people say this, oh, the oil and gas sector is opaque and there's no transparency. The reason is because we're not using data and technology. You can use data and technology to monitor things end to end.
Yeah.
And where we ended up in PMS, and I keep telling my team, it's not because Nigeria is the only country in the world that subsidizes, or Nigeria is the only country in the world that imports PMS. In fact, more than half of the countries in the world import PMS, and more than half of those actually subsidize because they don't want to subject their citizens to the up and downs of the price. The difference is Nigeria decided not to gather data. And somebody will tell you Nigeria uses 30 million liters a day. Another person will tell you 65 million liters. Between that 30 and 65 is a lot of fraud and corruption. So for us, and that's what was about to bankrupt Nigeria. So in the case of us now doing CNG, we cannot assume it will not happen. So we need to install technology to monitor the sector from day one. So the industry itself will be built on data collection and monitoring. And that's very critical in terms of compliance, whether with regulation, and also making sure that people don't play fast and loose when it comes to the safety of citizens.
Because what came to mind when you mentioned our consumption of fuel, recall that some persons were diverting that which we were supposed to consume in Nigeria to other neighboring countries.
No data,
so you are saying that that wouldn't happen with this now.
Yes, it's much more difficult with gas anyway, because you can store in moving gas. You can 250-kilometer range. By the time you get to Semiboda and they stop you for 1 hour, your gas is already not economical anymore. But it's a different ball game with gas and petrol. So gas needs to move in a predictable fashion. It needs to be utilized as quickly as it is made, and that gives it some of the issues you have with petrol. You just will not have it with gas.
Well, how do we now store this? We are going to have gas stations and everywhere. How do we? Because you don't expect people once it's produced, people will be readily on hand to consume it. How do they store it?
No, interesting is that once people, because it's a form of energy that is much more cheaper, it's more readily utilized. So the reality is that once it's available, we don't have a supply constraint as such. It's a demand constraint if you think about it. We are limited by the demand today because people are not demanding it, then supply is not coming. But the moment supply comes, people will be there. I'm ready to use the gas. So we need to create, that's why we are doing demand stimulation. That's why the federal government is saying, you have to, all the MDAs, why are you buying petrol? Because it's costing me more. And all of you have to use gas. And the moment all the MDAs have to use gas, the guy that is doing the retail station will invest. The guy doing the upstream will invest. And then the gas will flow, and then they will use it. And then more people will use it. So it becomes almost like a promise that fulfills itself. Okay. So we are not so worried about, even if you have to put it on your cascades and your cylinders while they are using most gas stations. NIPCO has about 12 of them in Benin today.
Infrastructure to compress gas?
To actually dispense gas. They have 12 in Benin, because Benin was the host of the pilot by NNPC about 10, 12 years ago. And when we went back there, the users, the Uber drivers and taxi drivers they said it was an NTA show, and they went there to do their own acquisition. And those guys said, look, it's crazy that anybody is using PMS in Nigeria. We will never use it. And the gas station said, we are doing good business. A gas station in Nigeria because gas money is continuous. The moment you put it out there and another guy needs it, it's continuous. You go fill up twice a week. It's fantastic. So for businessmen, for investors, Nigeria is open for business.
What you also are saying is that we have also the infrastructure to compress gas.
Absolutely.
As it is.
Absolutely.
Because that was also another concern that some people...
Yeah, we have the infrastructure to compress gas. We have about, today in Nigeria, we have close to 35 MRUs, major compression stations, MCCs. And we are growing that as we speak. In fact, on Saturday, I will be in Uyo to inspect a new mother station that's going to be driving CNG mobility in that region. I'll also be in Port Harcourt to commission one. In Lagos, we commissioned about 2 or 3 in the last 3 months, and we're in the last 3 weeks, and we'll continue to do commissionings of the sector is ready. They're ready for us. We are the ones that need to just make demands. And Nigeria needs to understand this. Moving to gas is good for us. It's good for Nigeria. We can use our gas, utilizing our gas instead of wasting it. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Someone will say, government subsidizing. Is government going to subsidize? Is government not really subsidizing the gas by reducing the price or giving money for conversion kits? I said, no, government is not subsidizing it. Okay. Today, what is the opportunity cost of government giving you gas. Because the reality is that if we don't give you the gas, if you don't utilize the gas, we're burning it. So not only are we saving on the subsidy, we are now actually selling the gas. So government is the owner of the gas, so they are selling the gas to you. So when you convert, we are not just giving you a free conversion kit, we are making you buy gas from government. Great, fantastic.
Veronica, we need to...
No, he has promised
Yes,
us.
promised
that,
us.
Yeah, so
After the show.
We are his constituents. Else we know where to
No problem. You're welcome.
Free conversions.
Did I say free? I said
Well, interesting. I believe that Nigerians, from all you have said, will be looking forward to everything that government is putting in place to ensure that they can access the CNGs when they are readily available across the country. We must thank you, CEO and Program Director, Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, Michael Oluwagbemi, for your time on the program.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains on the program for today. Let's let you know that the views